Welcome to the Power of Purity podcast, the show that empowers men to experience their sexual gift in a healthier way. Now here's your host, Tony Ingracia.
Hey guys, Tony here. Welcome back to the Power of Purity podcast, and thank you so much for being with me for today's episode. And I think that we're in for a big blessing, you guys, because I have a very special guest with us today, and her name is Sierra Michaelis. So let me just start off by saying, hi, Sierra.
Hi, Tony. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. God bless you. On the day that we're recording this, it happens to be February, and I'm in the St. Louis area, Weldon Spring, Missouri. You're in Columbia, Missouri, and it happens to be 0 degrees where I am today, and it's snowing pretty hard here. And they're saying it's going to be Arctic this weekend and then a whole bunch of snow early next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So it's kind of crazy weather right now.
Very much so.
So, Sierra, why don't we start with, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? You know, how old are you? Where do you live? What do you do? Are you married? Do you have any special hobbies? Is there anything that we should know about Sierra?
Those are all great questions. My name is Sierra Michaelis. I am 26. I just turned 26, which I feel 19. 26 sounds old.
Dude, let me tell you, I'm 63 and I feel 19.
Okay.
I'll give you a warning right now. Don't blink, because if you blink, you're going to be 63 years old and feel like you're 19. Like, what the heck happened?
I know. I think my soul stopped aging at 19. That's what I always say. But no, I'm 26. I feel 19. I'm from a really small town in North Missouri. The population's, I think the sign says 318.
Wow.
So, yeah. So, I went to school at the University of Missouri. I hate all things KU. I love to read. I love to play basketball. I love to coach. My hobbies, I guess. I mean, reading. I'm so busy with coaching. And I lead a small group at my church here in Columbia as well on Sunday nights. So my weeks are pretty full right now, but
sounds like you're very busy.
yes.
So are you actually a teacher?
So I am actually teaching at a middle school, yes, and I'm also going back to school. So I'm a full-time student at Mizzou, and then I'm a full-time teacher.
So are you working on a graduate degree at this time?
No, I'm working on just another undergrad. The first time wasn't enough, I guess. So I played basketball at Mizzou, so the first time was free. So I thought maybe I should.
You played basketball at Mizzou and got a full ride scholarship?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And
wow. You must have been really good.
I don't know about that, but I was thinking I have too much money and I have too much free time on my hands, so I need to go back to school.
Do something productive, right?
Yeah.
I think that's very honorable. What position did you play?
I was like a 2-3 guard, so that's like a shooter. I was one of the shortest on my team, actually, and I'm 5'11", so.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you play all 4 years?
I did. I played all 4 years.
Wow. Good for you. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So basketball's kind of in your blood. So now you're at a school, you're teaching, and you're the basketball coach.
Yeah, so I teach at a middle school, but I coach at Rockbridge High School in Columbia, Missouri.
I see. Well, good for you. I bet you love that, huh?
I love it. I absolutely love it.
What did you like better? Do you like playing better or coaching better?
I'm going to say I like coaching better. It's a little easier on my knees, but I miss playing. But we have a group. A lot of my teammates are still in Columbia or have moved back to Columbia. So we have a group that plays every Wednesday. So I get a little bit of both, but I do enjoy coaching.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. You mentioned that you lead a Bible study on Sunday nights at your church. Is there a theme to that Bible study? Do you guys go through a book of the Bible, or is it topical, or what do you do?
Yeah, so it's topical. Right now, we just started with the new semester. So we started in February, I believe. So right now, we've just been watching the Chiefs play.
Wow, what a cool Bible study.
No, it's the best. Everyone
You
should.
eat potato chips while you're having
Yes,
your Bible study?
exactly, exactly. The potato chips, but now that football season's over, we'll start hopping into some topics and stuff about the Bible.
Awesome. So obviously you're involved in your church, so I assume you're a believer in Christ. Can you tell us a little bit about that? How long have you been a Christ follower? Can you tell us a little bit about your spiritual journey? Have you always been a Christian? Did you grow up in church?
Yeah. I think it's like a lot of people's story growing up in church. I did grow up in a Christian home. We went to church growing up, but it's had its ups and downs where I'm like kind of like drug my feet or struggled with my relationship with Jesus.
Really? I'm shocked to hear that because I've been a believer in Christ for over 40 years and I've never struggled.
Oh, you're lucky then. You're
You
lucky.
know that I'm being sarcastic, right?
Yes, yes.
It's like,
But
right.
yeah,
Welcome to
I grew up
life.
in church.
Welcome to living in a wounded, broken, fallen world, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, I grew up in church. And then I kind of took it more seriously where I started going like every Sunday in high school, and I'd invite my friends. And then kind of just I stopped going for a while, my senior freshman year of college, and then started going again. I think my senior year of college, and then after I graduated as well, a
Okay.
little bit more seriously.
So God is definitely on the landscape of your life. He's on your radar,
Hmm.
and you consider yourself a spiritual person.
Hmm.
And would you say you're more serious about your faith at this point in your life than you've ever been?
I would absolutely say that. I think 2020, just kind of like stepping away from a lot of things, like we were alone, and at the time I was living alone, so um, I definitely finished Netflix and like the whole HBO thing. I read a
Right.
lot of books, but I also really like dove into the Bible for the first time, really like reading it with a purpose and not just reading it to kind of like check off some boxes, like, oh, I read my Bible today, but like actually like dove into the word and was like, what does this mean? What does that mean? What does this translate to? And I used a lot of other resources online as well. But yeah, 2020 just like I didn't want to waste um, the start of 2020 before COVID even happened. I like kind of rededicated. I would say like my life to Jesus. So I wanted to spend the whole year just like growing in my faith and growing in that relationship before I was doing anything else.
Awesome. Good for you. That's beautiful, Sierra. So, toward the purpose of this podcast, the name of our podcast is The Power of Purity.
Mhm.
So, we kind of deal with a theme of sexuality on this podcast. And the podcast is geared primarily to men, although I'm aware of the fact that many, many women listen to the podcast. And I actually had the opportunity to hear your story. You were the guest on another podcast. And I just thought that your story was very powerful and amazing. And I thought, man, I want to reach out to Sierra and see if she would share her story with us. So thank you so much for your willingness to do that.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
But again, toward that purpose, so I'm curious and would like to talk to you a little bit about and hear more of kind of the story of the sexual journey of your life and your
Mhm.
personhood. So I understand that when you were in high school, you realized that you were attracted primarily to other females.
Mhm.
So can you tell us a little bit about that discovery?
Yeah. Well, my senior year, I was in my first relationship with another girl, and at the time it just felt like normal. Like I was hiding it. I didn't tell anybody, obviously. So like I knew deep down that this probably wasn't right. Like I was hiding it for a reason. But yeah. So I was in a relationship with a girl. My parents found out. I went to college like the next week, so I got out of the house pretty quickly because we have to be there for summer workouts at Mizzou when I was going to play basketball. And I spent my whole freshman and sophomore year pretty much in hiding. I didn't tell any of my teammates. I didn't tell anybody from my small town. I didn't tell anybody.
Were you in any relationships at that time?
Yes, I was in the same relationship. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and then that ended, and then another relationship began between my junior and senior year of college. And then it was just, I don't know, it just felt right. It felt normal, and I kind of like embraced it, like, oh, this is who I am. This is how God made me. And I kind of just like put God on the back burner and put like my faith on the back burner. And during this time is like when I was really living in like struggle and darkness, and there was a lot of lies. And I just felt, it's hard to describe how you feel, but like when you're in the sin, it feels like you're doing the right thing. But like hindsight, it's like, why did I ever do that? Or like, why did I put myself through that? Or like, why did I do that to God? And because of my lies and because of me living in sin and living in the darkness, I hurt a lot of people. Not just me, but I hurt like a lot of those who I loved and those around me. But just like the hindsight again, like that whole time I can just see little things where like God was like chasing after me, where at the time like I didn't want to be chased. I remember praying like, God, I know what I'm doing is wrong, but like just not yet. Like I'm not ready yet. I don't want to fully surrender yet. And I would compartmentalize a little bit, where I was like, okay, God, like I can give you like this part of my life, like I can give you basketball, or I can give you other parts of my life, but like you can't have this relationship part. Like this part is mine, and like I'm in control of this part. Which honestly just led me to more struggles and a lot of hurt. And I was dragging my feet, and in 2020, I was just like, it was actually January 1st, 2020, so it was the very beginning of the year. And I was just like, okay, I'm ready. I literally said I'm ready, and I've tried to kind of like break up with these girls before, and like tried to do the right thing and to follow Jesus, and I was doing it on my own the whole time. I wasn't ever asking like, Jesus, like just take this. I wasn't like casting it all on him. I would set it down at his feet, and then I would like go pick it back up like the next day or like immediately. But in January of 2020, I just remember like saying like, God, I can't do this on my own. Like I'm gonna need help. And that's one of his promises. He's a helper. So
Praise be to God. Yes.
yes, absolutely.
His strength is made perfect in our weakness.
Yes.
And I think it's really beautiful what you shared about that you wanted to give every other area of your life to Christ, but you were struggling to surrender this area of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I just would like to note that I think that that's a pretty common struggle. I know that it was a struggle in my life, although I never struggled with same-sex feelings and attractions. I struggled very deeply with who I was as a sexual person and bringing my sexual gift under the authority of Christ. And my dilemma was that I was sexualized at a very early age. I found my father's pornography. My dad had a ton of porn, and I found it when I think I was 10 years old, and I got very involved in his pornography. And then I was sexually abused by two older women as I was growing up, and some different things that happened. And of course, there's just the orientation of my own sinful flesh. And my dilemma was that I got to the place where I just could not resist sexual temptation. And whenever temptation would present itself, which was pretty frequently in this world and culture in which we live, I just would act out, and I would do these things that I knew that God didn't want me to do. Pornography, compulsive masturbation, being sexualized with other people, being filled with lust, on occasion going to strip clubs, just acting out sexually in very inappropriate ways that I knew were inconsistent with my Christianity and with my conscience. But I didn't know how to bring that part of my life into God's kingdom under the authority of Christ. And so I think a lot of people, I have no doubt that a lot of people listening to this episode, the reason people listen to this podcast is because they're struggling bringing their sexuality under Christ.
Yes, for sure. And that alone is like probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, is like give up something that like half of you feels like the flesh, the human part of me was like, oh, this is okay. Like my worldly, like I'm in this world and like this is what the world's telling me is okay.
Right.
Well, a lot of people think that it's fine. And I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but I know like my convictions and like this is my story, but like my convictions and like God chasing after me and like my heart, I was just like something in me isn't fulfilled. Like this isn't fulfilling me. This isn't what I think God has for my life.
Right. And that's pretty powerful, because when you're a God follower, you surrender to the reality that God is your boss. It's like God is your superior officer. We have no choice. We have to obey God and surrender to God. And I know that sometimes I'm pretty good at fighting God.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But I've learned in my walk with Christ for over 40 years now that God normally wins.
Mm-hmm. Usually, that's how it goes, one way or another.
So a lot of times it's like the Lord says, okay, Tony, you want to fight about this? We can fight. And God lets me have my tantrums and be angry and stomp my feet and fight against it. But I've just learned it's better to yield to God, surrender to God, and submit to God and yield to God and obey God. And things seem to go way better for my life.
Yes.
Well, if we could go backwards for a moment in your story, as you were sharing kind of that little overview of your story, I feel like several questions emerged that I want to ask.
Okay.
One is, you said that you got into your first relationship with another female your senior year in high school. So that was a relationship. How soon before that did you begin to know, or did you begin to struggle within yourself, your thoughts, your feelings, the realization, I'm attracted to girls more than guys?
Mm-hmm.
Did you begin to define yourself as a person that's gay? Were you thinking, I must be gay? Like, when did that begin for you?
Yeah, that is always a hard question to answer, because honestly, I don't remember. I'm sure there was times, like when I was younger or early on in high school, I did have some boyfriends, and then we like broke up. But then I was mostly just like so involved in basketball, I didn't really have time. But there's definitely like times where I would like hang out with other girls or some of my friends, and I'm like, oh, they're pretty, and like it's more like just like get to know them, like hang out, like want to hang out and stuff more. But I don't remember ever until my senior year like wanting to like be involved like in a relationship. But again, like I was so like obsessed with like basketball, and that was my dream. But yeah, it's a good question, and I wish I could go back, but it's been so long, I don't actually remember like a day or a time or like a person where I was like, oh, like I'm attracted to this person, I must be gay. And honestly, I didn't really come to the like realization like, oh, this is who I am, until I was in college. Like even when I was in a relationship my senior year, I was like, no, this is just like a one-time thing. This can't be like who I am. This can't be like my future. And so I was kind of like in denial, and I think that's a lot of like where I was raised and my surroundings was like a small town. Like it's not something you normally do or see from people. So I think I was in denial for a lot of the period. But I think my sophomore and junior years, when I kind of was like beginning to accept like, oh, I'm gay, and I'm okay with saying it, and like this is who I am, and I feel free. And I thought that's where freedom was found, was like embracing my identity. And I think parts of that are true, but it is now that I've found like Jesus, and like kind of surrendered to Jesus. Like Jesus is where freedom is found, and I feel more free now, knowing that like I am who I am in Jesus rather than like I am who I am in this world, if that makes sense.
Yes, it makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned that in the early years you were hiding. When you
Mhm.
got into this relationship your senior year, you hid it.
Mhm.
And then as you transferred into college, your freshman, sophomore year, you were still hiding it, even
Mhm.
from friends at
Yeah.
school and stuff.
Yeah.
So can you talk just a little bit about that? I know that, there's the common term about coming out of the closet. At
Yeah.
this point, you were still in the closet. Did you have an intuitive sense or a fear of people judging you, or what was motivating you hiding?
That's honestly a lot of it. So just like the response kind of I got from my parents, wasn't a great response, and I don't blame my parents at all. Like I'm not a parent, so like I have no idea how I would have reacted. But I also mentioned this in the other podcast is like if like parents when your child is born, like I'm sure they had all of these like plans and dreams and like visions of how my life was going to look. Um, and I think the last thing my parents wanted was for me to like pursue what I was pursuing. Um, and I know they don't agree with it, but I also think it just makes life harder. And I think the last thing parents want for their kids is a harder life because they spend a lot of their parenthood making sure their kids have an easier life than what they had. But yeah, I was hiding it mostly because I was ashamed. I think deep down, I don't think I would have admitted it at the time, but I think I was. And like I said, like I was raised in church, and I would like to say I was bold in my faith in high school, and the last thing I wanted anybody to call me was like a hypocrite, even though we all sin, and all sins are equal in like the eyes of God. I think as humans we think some sins are worse than others, and this is definitely one of those worst sins. And I didn't want people to judge me or look at me any differently, and I definitely didn't want to lose any friends or family members that I cared about.
So you mentioned that your parents discovered this apparently right before you were leaving to go to Mizzou.
Yeah, impeccable timing.
How did that come about? How did you finally disclose to them what was going on in your life?
No, so actually, I would have kept it a secret if I could have. And I really do think this is just like God's grace looking back at it. But I did get in trouble. My phone was taken, and it was gone through. So, um,
So they discovered some things on your phone that revealed the truth to them, and therefore you were busted.
yeah, busted is a good word for it. I was busted.
And then I remember you sharing just a little bit on the other podcast interview that I heard, and it was very significant and powerful. It was very moving to me when you talked about how your parents responded. Could you share just a little bit about that? Because your dad didn't have a very good response.
No, yeah. So my dad wasn't actually home. Yeah, I'm not sure where he was, but it was pretty late. And me and my mom had gotten home. And I don't even remember what I was in trouble for, but I know she took my phone and she went to her room and it was bedtime. So like I was in my room and I just remember I was like staring at the ceiling, like, please just don't let her go through my phone. And I knew that's exactly what she was doing. 'Cause that's what moms do. And she came into my room and asked what this was or something like a text message. Um, and I don't even remember what I said. Like obviously there was nothing to say. Like it's pretty obvious what was going on. Um, and we kind of argued back and forth for a little bit, and then my dad came home, um, and he just told me to get out. And I don't think I left that night. It was pretty late. And then I just remember like the next week I was in Florida for our senior trip. I don't know if big schools do this, but small towns do like senior trips where you raise a bunch of money since you're like a seventh or eighth grader, and then you go on this big trip as a senior class. And there was only 12 kids in my class, so we went to Florida, and I spent the week in Florida, and then I got back a couple of days, and then I was in Columbia to go to Mizzou. So it was kind of a weird time period, and I don't think like me and my parents had a lot of time to like process together. So I think if we would have had more time together, maybe things would have been a little bit different. But that's just not how it went. And then I know I hurt them a lot by lying.
Sierra, I'm so sorry. I'm just, it makes me sad. Your dad's initial knee-jerk reaction, he actually told you to get out. It's like apparently he just didn't know what to do or how to deal with this. Obviously, he was in the place where he disapproved of the choices you were making at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And he just responded in this way. Do you remember what it provoked in you? How did it make you feel?
Honestly, I was just scared. I was like, and then I remember I just kind of looked at my mom like, what? But like I said, like I don't think I left. I went to bed. I don't even remember if I think I had school the next day, and life was like kind of semi back to normal. Just like kind of swept under the rug.
And then you went on your
Yeah.
senior trip,
And then
and then you went immediately to Mizzou. So
yeah.
it's almost like you were able to escape the tension of the immediate situation with your parents.
Yeah.
And how did that unfold then? You were out of the house now, you're at college. Were you communicating with your mom and dad then?
Yeah. It was kind of like short conversations. Like I said, kind of like swept under the rug. And they would bring it up, and I would just lie about it and kind of deny it. Just because I didn't want to lose my parents. I didn't want them to just like cut off communication or cut me off. But I definitely lied and said like, oh, this isn't anything. It's over, all this stuff. But
so you were pursuing relationship your freshman and sophomore year in college, but you were still hiding from your parents, so they didn't know
mm-hmm.
the extent of your choices and your activities and such.
Yeah.
And did they ever find out then again later?
Yeah, it went back and forth for a long time, but and then I would deny it, and then something would happen where they would find out, and then I would deny it again, and it was just kind of a circle, but like a cycle. It was just hard. I just remember it being so hard because like I love them, and I know they love me, and they want the best for me, and they definitely didn't agree with what I was doing, and they didn't want to see me hurt, and then on the other side, like I kept lying and I kept hurting them. So
right,
just a cycle.
You had shared earlier that you realized that you have hurt many people
mm-hmm.
with your situation, and presumably that's what part of what you're referring to, at least, is your parents, the difficulty in your relationship with them.
Yeah.
And with that being said, guys, I see from the clock that we're out of time for today's episode, so I need to jump in here. And I want to invite you to come back next week for part 2 of our story with Sierra Michaelis. It's a beautiful story, and she has some really insightful and significant things to share with us in part 2 of this interview. So I pray that you'll be able to come back next week. And guys, before I wrap up today, I just want to throw out one quick reminder that we do have coming up in March the next Pathway of Purity Intensive Workshop. It's the weekend of March 20th and 21st. And you can attend this workshop live in the St. Louis area, or you can attend virtually over Zoom. So if you're interested, go to the Power of Purity website, powerofpurity.org, and there's a link at the top of the page, Intensive Workshop, and it'll give you all the information there that you need. It's going to be a life-changing event, so if you're ready to take your walk of purity to the next level, I really believe that this intensive weekend would be the equivalent of at least 6 months of professional counseling. It's going to change your life. So check it out, you guys. Pray about it, think about it. And I will look forward to seeing you right back here next week for our next episode of the Power of Purity podcast. In the meantime, be blessed, you guys. Have a great day. Have a blessed week. In Jesus' name. Bye-bye now.
Thanks for listening. Visit powerofpurity.org for more resources and information. And if this podcast has been helpful or encouraging, please invite a friend to listen. Until next time, remember, there's power in purity.